Hello, Steve White, Tripway89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, this is kind of interesting. I was just watching Katee Sackhoff's podcast, and she was interviewing Sonequa Martin Green. Now, first off, let me just be very clear. I like both these actresses. I've met Katee briefly when she was here in Australia. I couldn't go to her panel because someone else was on at the same time, and it was a real crunch to get people in and out of this hall, and I just happened to be lucky enough to be standing in a little a doorway, and when there was this crunch, she just kind of got pulled into this little space by her security guard for a moment while they sort of made space for her to get out. And we were just standing there, and this guy, of course, was looking at me like, don't even think about it. But I just made small talk and blah, blah, blah. And she was really sweet. And I'm just like, God, this must happen to you all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, when she was back on the floor and doing autographs and that, I didn't get an autograph, but I just was chatting to her on that for a second. And she was really friendly. I got this nice photo of her smiling and talking to me just from the table and all that. She was just really nice. And if you watch any of her podcasts, she's a nice person. Now, Sonequa Martin Green, as you all know, I have issues with Discovery. I always have. And I have had issues with her character. I'm not going to say I hate them, because I don't hate them. But I found it really frustrating because whenever I'd see her interviewed, and I watched a lot of interviews of her, she was always really sweet and really nice. And I thought, God, how does someone that nice inhabit a character so tedious and a show that has so many issues and has done such a bad job with Star Trek and its legacy? And a lot of people would criticize the fact that Burnham was the center of everything, and instead of a ensemble show and a crew that were all integral to, I got that word wrong, to the missions and solving things as a crew, their diversity, their uniqueness, and all those were all elements. And it was always about this one character sort of saving the day, and basically people were calling her Space Jesus. And I thought that was appropriate because she was this superhero character that always saved everything, was all about her, and the universe just was waiting for her to come along and save it all the time. And everyone else was just secondary, and I think the other cast was really underused and didn't get the sort of roles they would have gotten on another Star Trek show. And then she was talking, and right away they start talking, and she reveals that she is a religious person. Now, full disclosure, I hate religion. I hate all organised religion, and I cannot tolerate anyone pushing religion on anyone. I find it's the most destructive and hateful thing that exists in our society. Although some people who believe in it legitimately are wonderful people, and they actually believe in it. So I get that she's one of those people. So, but yeah, so I'm looking at this series and I'm like, it's starting to make sense. I'm like, okay, because she was talking about how you have to be Christ-like, and how she wants to be Christ-like in her life and in her career, and that you need to be Christ-like, basically. And you have to look at Christ's example and try and be that. Now, that's pretty disturbing to me to hear anyone talk like that. But I get what she's saying, but there's something really disturbing about that. And when you look at how that character went and the direction it went in, now I assumed part of that was typical star ego, narcissism, arrogance, where she just made herself the center of everything, and I sort of couldn't quite reconcile that with how she appeared in interviews and what everyone said about her. Everyone said wonderful things about her, and I'm like, I think I get it now. Now because she was saying you have to sort of show people, and she was saying this is my show family, and distinguishing that from your chosen family or your real family. And she was sort of saying how you have to sort of create this wonderful space, because she'd been on another show where she came into the show in the middle, and the people who were running the show gave really good examples. And one example of that, of course, is always Scott Bakula. Everyone talks about how amazing he was on the show. He was the first person to get there on the set, the last person to leave. He knew all the grips and the camera and everyone by name and everyone. And she sort of had a sort of example like that, and she's like, I want to be that person. I want to be the sort of the leader and show everyone, that this is fun and great, and we're all family and blah blah. And I can see how now the writers, I think, made the character more like her in a way, that it was this sort of Christ-like sort of center of everything person. And I used to think it was done in a very narcissistic, selfish way, but now I'm actually looking at it and thinking, oh, okay, I think I get how this happened now. And I get, because I always thought, I can't wait till this show is done and the NDAs or whatever are done, and I want to hear what people really thought of Sonequa, because they're all, oh, she's the most wonderful thing ever and all that, and I'm like, yeah, what do you really think? And I'm like, I think maybe some of these people actually feel like that. They actually, I think that's how that Space Jesus scenario phenomenon sort of happened. And I think she sort of became the center of the show, not so much out of negativity and ego and all that and narcissism, but because she actually was trying to be that. And somehow they picked up on that Christ-like ideal, and they kind of then made her like that. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense how that character went like that. I think it ruined the show, because Burnham was kind of unlikable, and she was such the center of everything, and the other characters you wanted to spend time with, that you wanted to see have more than one or two scenes in one or two episodes, like Reese or whatever his name was. Like he had like 2 moments in like 2 shows, and that's it. I would have loved to have for him to have had whole episodes, and everything was about Burnham. And so I'm now very curious to see how people would talk about her now after the fact, and I think it would be different from what I thought. And now it makes sense that she seems like such a wonderful person in interviews, but yet she had this tedious character in this horrible Star Trek show that did not work, because it's all about this one superhero-like person, and it kind of makes sense now, in a way. So I just found that fascinating. I just want to talk about that for a second. And I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of Star Trek Discovery, Sonequa Martin Green, and just all of that.